Welcome back to State of Security. I'm Ken Stasiak, CEO of Secure State. Last month we talked about the financial industry, threat intel, where things were going. This week I spoke at the ABA conference in St. Louis. Big conversations around threat intel, what the industry is doing. This month we're going to talk about the energy sector, and really kind of the same thing, where the industry is going, some emerging technologies, and the threat that the energy sector faces. So what's going on with the energy sector? Well, The Economist came back about 5 years ago, wrote an article and said that the infrastructure in the United States for the energy grid is decaying. So 5 years later, it hasn't gotten any better, it's gotten worse. In fact, out of every developed nation in the world, the United States has the most blackouts and the most outages. So when you start talking about smart grid technology and adding emerging technology onto a decaying infrastructure, you have big problems. The first problem is just reliability. The second is now you're putting on new devices with old technology, and that interoperability lends itself open to hackers to start attacking legacy systems, but also the new technology. And there you have a pretty good profile for a perfect storm: threat agents, legacy systems, new technology, with cyber attacks increasing on the energy sector, something we're going to have to really look out for in the future. So my pet peeve is this threat intel that we get, especially from the federal agencies. Energy sector is no different. They got some threat intel on black energy. Black energy is what the DHS refers to as a malware Trojan horse that's been implanted into the energy companies since 2011. It's kind of dormant in Cold War status, if you will, until some event. Now, that's pretty much what we know from the DHS. We've done some investigations here. We haven't found much more information that's been disseminated to energy companies. This is kind of like the falling rocks. If you're driving down the freeway, you see the sign that says falling rocks, you generally look up, see if a rock's going to fall. It's probably not, and you keep driving. This threat intel that the energy sector is receiving is very non-useful, and the only thing it can do is really just stop an organization from doing anything other than doing what it should be doing, which is moving forward on its critical mission to protect the grid and have reliable energy to the consumers. So SIP version 5's out. We have a lot of mid-size energy companies that are struggling that we've been working with, and there's a lot of reasons why. Primarily they have lack of resources. So this starts to really pale into other areas of security as well. Incident response, having the team necessary to comply with the emergent technology, having the team that could really understand the vulnerabilities that are presented when using emerging technologies on the grid, keeping the grid running, obviously producing power. All these things are lack of resources that we see in the mid-size. For larger organizations, we're seeing that the SIP 14, which is really focused on large substations, is a fairly daunting physical security requirement that they're struggling to implement. The real question out of all this is it really necessary? Is SIP really providing a lot of value, or is it just red tape that energy companies need to go through? As most federal regulated back regulations that come out, very similar to SOX, they have a deteriorating effect. And I think at this point, we're seeing that the SIPs, while it's the only standard for energy, is really not really moving the needle for these energy companies to get secure. It's more of a checkbox. It's a 3-year cycle. A lot could happen in 3 years. So there's a lot of things that have to change for the energy sector to keep up with the emerging threats and security. At the end of the day, we need more resources. We need to get funding to stabilize our decaying grid. And moving forward with all these new threats and cyber attacks, we have to have a team ready to be able to respond. So the energy sector is no different than some of the other sectors. I think the biggest thing that you'll see the difference between the other industries is the fact that they have a really decaying infrastructure. Not a lot has been spent to upgrade, and they're moving a lot of emerging technologies onto that. In addition to, it's a high-profile target. As we've talked about, malware being produced, cyber attacks on the increase, resources scarce, and a requirement that really doesn't meet the intent of what I believe energy companies need to move forward. So looking for 2015 and 16, we're going to look for energy companies to really start to look to get additional funding from the government to stabilize our grid. With that will come security requirements, and hopefully be able to be in a period of time where we don't have to worry about our grid going down because of outages or because of a cyber attack. This is Ken Stasiak. Send any questions or comments to info@securestate.com. See you next month.